What happens if you travel from one side of the world to the other side? We've all wondered what would happen if we started digging a tunnel that opened up to the other side of the world, right? But where exactly would this hypothetical tunnel open up? In this video, we're going to talk about what would happen if you travel from one side of the world to the other. About 5,000 years ago, it was discovered that the Earth was round. Since then, scientists have believed that the furthest place away from you at any present moment is whatever place is exactly on the opposite side of the Earth from you. This distance is roughly 20,000 kilometers across the Earth's surface, given the planet's size and diameters. These places are what scientists referred to as antipodes. Any 2 points that are antipodal to one another have a straight line running through them across the Earth's surface. This means that if you were to travel in a straight line, you'd eventually end up at your antipode. And walking might be a better idea than digging a tunnel because of the massive engineering challenges that would come with digging a tunnel so deep. And even if you do manage to dig a tunnel, you'd hardly make it to the other side because of gravity that would constantly pull you down towards the center of the Earth. However, let's say you dig this tunnel at the perfect angle. Then, you'd start falling down towards the center of the Earth, accelerating constantly. By the time you reach the halfway point, after falling for 21 minutes, you'd be traveling at 28,000 kilometers per hour. Once you crossed a halfway point, the velocity would carry you back up the other side of the tunnel for another 21 minutes. This time, however, gravity will start slowing you down, so by the time you reach the other end, you'll come to a perfect stop right as you reach your destination. Sounds pretty cool, right? It is in theory. But practically? It's nearly impossible. This is all because Earth is a sphere, of course, meaning that if you dig straight down in the northern hemisphere, you'll end up just as far from the equator in the southern hemisphere. Most people in America believe that if they start digging, they'd eventually end up in China. But that's not really the case at all. In fact, exactly 20,000 miles opposite from America, we have the Indian Ocean. Which means that if you started digging or even walking, you'd eventually just end up in water. And that's the case for a lot of other locations. Why? Well, because more than half of the Earth is covered in water. So, only about 3% of the Earth's surface has land-to-land antipodal locations, with the largest portion of antipodal land being the distance from the tip of South America to eastern Central Asia. So, once again, even if you do manage to handle the task of digging through the Earth's continental crust, mantle, outer core, inner core mantle, and then crust once again, you're extremely likely to end up in the ocean, because that's usually what lies on the other side of the world from us. And if you really want to dig a hole in China, you might want to start in Chile or Argentina. And when it comes to the USA, if you want to end up on land, Hawaii's antipodes fall in Africa, with Honolulu opposite Namibia and the Big Island opposite Botswana. Meanwhile, the opposite of New Zealand is France. If you're on the west coast, you'd come up closer to Africa, on the east, closer to Australia. However, nearly all of Africa is straight across the Pacific Ocean. If you live in the northernmost parts of Alaska, your sandbox hole could end up on land, in Antarctica. Most interestingly, if you take Point Nemo, which is the most inaccessible point location on the Earth that's farthest from the land, that's also completely opposite to another extremely remote place in a Kazakhstani desert. The furthest humans have actually ever gotten is the tip of the Kola Superdeep Borehole in northwestern Russia, which reaches only 7.5 miles beneath the ground, which is way too less if you want to travel to its antipode. Even then, it took almost 25 years to dig, and the process ended when temperatures of over 350 degrees Fahrenheit made drilling impossible. The hole didn't even come near to penetrating the continental crust through the thin shell of rock that sits atop the rest of the planet. This just goes to show how impossible it really is to travel from one side of the Earth to the other without taking a plane or two. However, when you consider the flat Earth theory, which says that instead of a sphere, the Earth is a flat disk with 4 corners, with mountains at every edge. According to this model, the most important difference that we would have would be the fact that gravity would be completely out of the equation. People who believe in a flat Earth assume that gravity would pull straight down, but there's no evidence to suggest it would work that way. What we know about gravity suggests it would pull toward the center of the disk. This means that everything will get pulled down to only one point at the center of the flat Earth, eliminating any chance of actually being able to dig your way to your antipode. Most flat earthers also believe that the edges of the Earth are surrounded by an ice wall. This means your exact antipode wouldn't be anything other than the ice wall. And once you do reach this ice wall, flat earthers believe that whenever an object reaches the edge of this ice wall, the object will teleport from one side of the planet to the other because of electromagnetic forces, just like Pac-Man. So you might end up right where you started. However, that's all just speculation. Whether you believe that the Earth is a sphere, or if you like to call yourself a flat earther, one thing's for sure, traveling from one side of the Earth to the other without any planes isn't as easy as it sounds, because you never know where you might end up.